Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Empower Your Mind for Success podcast, a podcast for anyone who wants to build an entrepreneurial mindset. If you wanted to develop a new habit that would bring a significant positive change in your life, would you choose the habit to be an outcome based habit or an identity based habit? Yesterday in the podcast, we discussed about, how happiness is within you and more of a state of mind that gets developed if your thoughts are pleasant more often than not. And today I wanted to discuss about what habits can be put in place that will lead to happiness so that we can unlock the happiness within. And I wanted to connect the dots between two books that I have read. I'm reading, right? One is Atomic Habits by James Clear, who basically talks about how habits are formed, how you can deconstruct a habit and reconstruct a habit, and how environment plays a big role in making positive habit changes. And between the other book that I'm still reading, which is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, where he talks about that happiness is a habit. So before we understand how happiness can be a habit, let's figure out what a habit is to begin with. Now, James Clear in his book talks about two types of habit changes. One is outcome-based habit change, and the other is the identity-based habit change. So to understand this, I want you to think of three concentric circles. Okay, in the outcome-based habit, the outermost circle is outcome, which basically means what you get. The middle circle is processes, what you do. And the innermost circle is identity, which is basically your self-image, your belief system. Okay. Now, if you move outward to inward, from outcome-based to your identity, then that is an outcome-based habit change. Okay. If you are if you are moving inwards to outward, that means if you're trying to first identify who you want to be and then make a habit change, then that's an identity based habit change. And James Clear says that first deciding who you want to become is very important to understand, because a change in habit based on your identity is more sustainable and will give you more motivation to make a habit change. Okay. And I think if you relate this to the corporate world, it's very interesting, right? I've worked in consulting for a very long time, management consulting, IT consulting. And when you want to get promoted in consulting to the next level, you already have to start behaving and demonstrating capabilities of the level that you want to get promoted to. It's not that you get promoted, then you get trained, right? You already need to have those capabilities. Of course, you need to learn more, but you need to demonstrate some of those capabilities before you can get promoted. The same thing in the habit things, right? If you want to change your habit, then you need to decide who you want to become. And then you already need to start thinking about that. Right now, if it's an identity based habit change, then we need to understand what identity is. And James Clear did a fantastic job in his book. I didn't know about this, but he says that identity, the word identity, originates from Latin, and it is formed out of two words. The first word is essentias and the second word is identitum. Right? Essentias means being, right? Being. And identitum means repeatedly. So identity is repeatedly being, which means whatever you do repeatedly unconsciously in your subconscious mind, which is your habit, is your identity. So if you want to change your identity, you have to change your habit. Make sense? Right? So if you want to change your identity, if you want to change your who, you have to change your habits. If you want to be happier, you need to change your habits to make yourself happier. Right? If you want to become financially free, you need to decide what that is in terms of numbers, timeline, and then build habits, build an entrepreneurial mindset that will allow you to achieve that identity, which is being financially free, right? So that is what that is what habit changes are, right? So if you want to make a habit change, you need to first identify or decide what kind of a person you want to be, and then step two is to make small changes towards being that person, right? A habit change should not be a very huge task. It has to be a series of small tasks where after achieving every task you need to award yourself or reward yourself to emphasize or to reinforce the positive change behavior. Now, if you have not read the book Atomic Habits, I strongly recommend you read it, because at the end of the day, we are what our habits are, right? So that is very important for you to understand. Now, if you understand habits, or at least little bit, right? Making a habit change will require you to decide the identity that you want to become, or the person you want to become. And then there are the two-step process. Decide what kind of person you want to become. And second is make small marginal changes. Okay. Now there are several laws to habit changes that James Clear talks about in his book. But I think I think this is pretty good enough for you to understand that your habit change should be created from the identity you want to assume, or you want to, the person you want to become. And keep in mind, right, we are not talking about years and years worth of things to unlearn what you have learned in your prior lifetime, right? Or the life years that you have lived so far. If you make a 1% improvement every day from today onwards, you will be 37 times better in 12 months. 37 times. And if you went backwards 1% every day, you will literally come down to zero, right? So we are not talking about, a huge change, right? We are not talking mega changes. We're talking about 1% improvement every day. And, if your habit is basic, or if your identity is repeatedly being or repeatedly doing whatever you do, then, and what you do repeatedly is coming from your belief systems, from your self-image, then you need to also create an environment that is conducive for the new who you want to become. You cannot become a new person if you are in the same environment. Okay, this is very important. We cannot discount the effect the environment has, and I've spoken about this multiple times. This also comes about from the new science of epigenetics, right, where scientists are now proving that our behaviors, our personalities, our future is not decided by the genetic makeup alone of our parents. The environment that we grow up in has a larger impact than the genetic makeup itself. Okay, so we cannot discount the environment. So to make a habit change, you not only need to decide who you want to be and make small changes, you need to also make your environment conducive to make a habit change. Okay. So now let's take a look at what Dr. Maxwell Maltz says in his book, Psycho-Cybernetics, right? He's saying that, we humans are goal-striving beings, okay? We naturally and normally function very well when we are working towards a positive goal, or we are striving towards a desirable goal, right? What is a desire? Desire is a gap between where you are now to where you want to be. So think of desire like a bridge, right? You need to fill the gap between point A, point B, where you are to where you want to go, with a bridge that will allow you to fulfill your desire. So that is why we are always forward looking, right? We're always striving to achieve more. It is encoded in us, right? At a cellular level. So if you want to now be happy, and happiness comes about through a habit change, which Dr. Maxwell Maltz says that happiness is a habit. The more you repeatedly practice the habit of being happy, the more happier you will become. And you need to keep on intentionally practicing being happy until it becomes automatic until it completely gets ingrained and engraved in your subconscious mind. Remember, we discussed this yesterday, right? 95% of what we do on a daily basis is in the autopilot mode, basically, which means it's being done subconsciously, okay, through our subconscious mind. So we have to get the habit of being happy into the subconscious mind. Now, it's very easy to say, but not easier to do, right? So there are certain things that I believe we can practice, right? First of all, you need to be intentional about this. Okay, this is not easy, right? So you have to be intentional about this. You need to be aware about what are you saying, the words, and you also need to be intentional about what thoughts you have in your mind. So, let's say that, you have a task to complete at work, and you're running and you're running behind on that task, right? If you are telling yourself, oh my goodness, Anish, you're late again, you'll never be able to complete this, you need to arrest that thought. You need to interrupt that thought and cancel that thought, right? So the way you cancel the thought is you interrupt the thought and then you say, not that I'm late on this task again, I'll not be able to finish it. You got to say, next time onwards, I'm going to start the task a day, half a day earlier, 10 hours earlier, 1 hour earlier, whatever the case is, and I will always finish the task on time. You have to tell that to yourself. Okay, I know this sounds silly, but this is how the science of conscious mind and subconscious mind works. This is the way to make about changes, right? These are the laws of the universe that we have to apply. So you do a pattern interrupt, and then you cancel that thought and you repeat a thought. Now, remember, you cannot erase anything from your subconscious mind. There is no backspace delete button. The only way to alter the neural pathways of your subconscious mind is by repeatedly doing something positive, which would then replace the negative thought. So you have to tell yourself that you're going to start early and you're going to finish the task on time. You have to replace the negative thoughts by a positive thought, right? There has to be a replacement, okay? And we cannot discount the environment, like I was talking before, right? So if you want to now, let's say, start replacing your negative thoughts by a positive thought, and maybe you decide, okay, you're going to read a self-development book, you need to now remind yourself that you need to read that book every day. Now, if you read the book in the morning, then you better keep the book next to your desk where you work so that you have a visual cue of remembering that you need to read the book. If you read the book at lunchtime, keep it on your dining table in your work place or with your lunch bag. If you read the book in the night, ensure you keep the book on the pillow when you make your bed in the morning, so that when you come to sleep in the night, you will see the book on your pillow and that will be a cue for you to read that book. Okay, you have to create an environment that will encourage you to make changes to your habits that are based on the identity or the person you want to become. Okay, so this is very important, right? So that is how the habit structure, the science of habits, and how the happiness thing that Maxwell Maltz talks about in his book. Couple of other examples that Maxwell Maltz gives in his book about canceling negative thoughts is from Hollywood, right? He talks about Bruce Lee. We all know Bruce Lee. And what Bruce Lee did to cancel his negative thoughts was he used to visualize his negative thoughts. He used to visualize him writing it on a piece of paper, crumpling that piece of paper, and then burning that piece of paper, and then throwing the ashes away. This is what he visualized. Chuck Norris took it one step ahead. He not only visualized it, he wrote his negative thoughts on a piece of paper and then burned the paper physically to cancel his negative thoughts, right? I remember a Bollywood movie where the main actor had a very horrible breakup, and he is traveling in a train, and he bumps into a girl who eventually becomes his girlfriend later in the movie. And this girl, kind of is a very cheerful, happy person, and she's kind of trying to, cheer the actor up. And she says, right, I mean, if you just had a very bad breakup, then you take the picture out from your wallet, burn it, and flush it out of your life. And that's what he does. And after doing that silly thing, the actor really feels good. Right. So all these things are really They really work, and that is why there are so many successful people who do this, right? That is why um, people people exercise or conduct themselves in a certain way, especially the very successful entrepreneurs. Also remember that our body has 11 million receptors. 10 million of those receptors are dedicated to sight. No wonder we learn what we see and not what we hear. That is why in goal setting, all the entrepreneurial gurus, all the coaches, every successful person, all the Harvard university studies, they all talk about writing down your goals. Why? Because when you're writing your goal, you're not only thinking, but you're also seeing what you write. And when you see it, you remember it. And when you remember it, you'll go about trying to achieve it. There are a lot of neural pathways connections that happen in your neocortex brain and in your mind that allows you to achieve your goals when you write them down on a daily basis, ideally, as opposed to just thinking about it. Okay, so from that perspective, then happiness then becomes another way, another habit that we need to inculcate in ourselves. We have to be intentional about it. If we decide who we want to be, we can start being inspired to make the change. To make the change, we need to cancel the negative thoughts. It's all in the thoughts. It's all in the mind, guys. If we cancel the negative thoughts and replace them with positive thoughts, we will start using these two principles, right? The science of making habits, creating new habits, and what Dr. Maxwell Maltz talks about from a psycho-cybernetics perspective in his book. I hope connecting these dots helped you a little bit to understand the concept, and maybe you want to listen to this podcast again to give you an idea. And I would strongly recommend that you read James Clear's book Atomic Habits and Psycho-Cybernetics as well by Maxwell Maltz. Right, they're both amazing books. I hope this has helped you. I hope this has provided value to you. If it has, please pay it forward to someone you believe would benefit from listening to this podcast. Subscribe to the podcast. Remember, you have unlimited potential. Own it. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care.